we remain united. We remain united in our purpose to keep pressure mounting on Putin and his war machine. This is a step that we're taking to inflict further pain on Putin, but there will be cost as well here in the United States. I said I would level with the American people from the beginning. And when I first spoke to this, I said defending freedom is going to cost. It's going to cost us as well in the United States.
That was President Biden announcing today that the United States would ban all Russian oil imports, a move that will come at a severe cost to Russians and have ramifications in the U.S. as well. While America imports only 4% of Russian oil, today's announcement sent prices skyrocketing, with a barrel of oil trading at roughly $130. Just 2 weeks ago, it was trading for roughly $95. President Biden noted that he would do his best to insulate Americans from the pain at the pump and said that it was an opportunity for America to become a leader in clean energy technology.
This crisis is a stark reminder. To protect our economy over the long term, we need to become energy independent. That'll mean tyrants like Putin won't be able to use fossil fuels as weapons against other nations. And it will make America a world leader, manufacturing and exporting clean energy technologies of the future.
Hours later, Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced that the United Kingdom would phase out Russian oil imports by the end of the year. In a video addressed today, President Zelensky thanked President Biden and Prime Minister Johnson and encouraged other countries to do the same. Yesterday, Russia's deputy prime minister warned that a rejection of Russian oil would lead to catastrophic consequences for the global market. Russia is the world's third largest oil producer behind the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, and the world's largest exporter of crude to global markets. The European Union receives about 40% of its gas via Russian pipelines. Finland and Latvia receive roughly 90% of their gas from Russia. And Germany, which has expressed skepticism about cutting off Russia, receives roughly 50% of its gas from Russia. Late today, Fitch, a credit rating firm, cut Russia's financial rating, moving the country's outlook into junk territory, and warned that a Russian debt default is imminent. Joining me now, Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island. He's a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and Stephanie Ruhle, host of MSNBC's The 11th Hour with Stephanie Ruhle, and an NBC News senior business correspondent. Congressman, I'm going to start with you. I know that there is House legislation that's also going through pending that would ban the imports of Russian oil. What's the difference between that House legislation and what President Biden announced today?
Well, President Biden's announcement today is to ban the import of oil, but in addition to that, he included provisions to prohibit the financing of Russian energy projects, which is very, very important, and also prohibited the investments in the Russian energy sector by American companies. So there are additional provisions in the executive order. The legislation is still being crafted, but it relates to the trade status of Russia as well as the banning of the import of Russian oil.
And Stephanie, if I could go to you just to sort of explain this in regular people terms that you're so good at doing, my friend and colleague, and congrats. I haven't gotten a chance to congratulate you on the new show. The market is global, right? So if the United States says we're not going to buy any more Russian oil, it's not as if that turns off a certain spigot of it. I mean, the market is actually global. The prices are set globally. But how does how does the United States and the UK cutting back on our consumption of really relatively smaller amounts of oil impact the market?
Okay, so let's just break this down, Joy, because the United States produces an enormous amount of its own oil and gas. Less than 10% do we even get from Russia, so we don't have a supply issue. What we deal with now is a price issue. If Russia suddenly has nowhere to sell their oil, because it's not just the United States, it's the UK, it's the EU. I mean, the EU gets up to 40% of their oil and natural gas from Russia. If Russia doesn't have anywhere to sell it, that's a problem for them. But as you said, the price is set globally. So if the price of oil is suddenly $200 a barrel, even if we don't need Russian oil, we're going to have to pay that increased price. So there's two things that happens from there. We're now dealing with increased gas prices, and everyone, for good reason, is obviously very, very upset about that. And this is a point where you and I should smile real, real big for the boys at Fox News, because this is where they say, over at MSNBC, they don't care that the American people are going to struggle and they can't pay for more expensive gas. That's not the case at all. Obviously, everyone is sensitive to Americans who have to pay more for gas. But unfortunately, for the time being, that is going to be the price of war for the American people. And when you think about what other things it could cost us, like us having our own military on the front lines, paying more for gas for the time being is much cheaper than what a military option would be. And that's where we are.
Right.
This is the economic tool we can use to squeeze Russia.
Right, and indeed, and Congressman, there are things that maybe at the margins that Congress could do to weigh in rather than sort of backing what the president is doing. I mean, you could mess with the gas tax, right, which is probably not great long term for the environment. You could sort of lever that down. Are there other small things? Because I hate to break it to folks who are watching. Stephanie will high five me on this virtually. The president of the United States does not control the price of gas. Joe Biden does not control the price of gas. He can't do much to control the price of gasoline. That's not the way it works. But there are small things that could be done in terms of dealing with the gas tax. Is that being considered at all legislatively?
I think Stephanie has it exactly right. I think people are very, very aware of how difficult this is for working families in this country. The president has released the reserves from the petroleum reserves to help increase the supply of gasoline in this country, to help stabilize the price. He's called on producers to produce more, particularly our allies around the world. And he's really called out, the presidents of these American oil companies to be sure that they're not using this as an opportunity to gouge people, to take advantage of this situation. But Stephanie is absolutely right. What is happening in Ukraine is a humanitarian disaster, an unjustified, illegal war that is devastating a country. I was just at the Ukraine-Polish border, and millions of refugees are leaving that country. We have a responsibility to do everything we can to put an end to this war and the suffering that has resulted from Vladimir Putin's aggressions. And if we are going to be forced to pay some additional costs for gas, we're going to have to be prepared as a country to do that. The Ukrainian people are willing to give their lives to fight for their freedoms and to fight for democracy. I think everyone in the world has to do their part to support that effort. And we're going to do everything we can to mitigate the impact of this decision. But I think it's absolutely right. The American people do not want to finance this war, do not want to finance the deadly machine that is killing women and children and innocent civilians. And if we can choke off the revenue supply to Russia and cripple their economy, Vladimir Putin won't be able to finance this aggressive campaign. So I think Americans are ready to do their part, and we're going to try to figure out ways to mitigate the impact on working families in this country. It won't be easy, but it's the right thing to do.